Hello and welcome to sentence diagramming exercise number 12. We're going to review this week the new skill that you learned last week that of joining together subjects, predicates, direct objects, predicate adjectives, predicate nominatives, and actually anything else that goes on a horizontal line together with conjunctions. And here's what your little diagram should look like, assuming you've completed the warm-up already. Sam and Dave formed, what did they form? A soul band. And there actually was a soul band called Sam and Dave. They were really good. If you think that formed was a linking verb and not an action verb, and therefore that band is a predicate nominative instead of a direct object, and that this vertical line should be diagonal, I can live with that, just so you guys know. Oh, I made a mistake here. The students felt, what did they feel? Gleeful and happy. And notice that gleeful and happy here, these are adjectives. And they describe the students. They are not adverbs describing how the students felt. And they're not direct objects describing what the students felt. They're predicate adjectives. They just describe the students. Number 3, we ate eggs, pancakes, needs a horizontal line, and sausage for breakfast. Why or when did we eat them? For breakfast. So for breakfast describes 8, not these things, either not just sausage, not all 3 of these things, but it describes 8. And then the last one. Gia and Sophie saw Selma, that's a movie, you should see it, with Steve and Jane. And here's something you haven't seen before. Gia and Sophie, okay, 2 subjects, so far so good. Saw, action verb, Selma, direct object. Well, here's something you might not have seen before, and that's a cursive capital S. That's what that looks like. But here's the thing that's grammatical that you may not have seen before. With Steve and Jane. Check it out. There's with, a preposition on its diagonal line, and there comes the horizontal line, the lazy L. But now, instead of 1, we have 2 objects of the preposition. With Steve and Jane. So this horizontal line of a lazy L, just like any other horizontal line, we can split it and make a butterfly wing or rocket ship or whatever you want to call it to have a prepositional phrase with 1 preposition and 2 objects. So be ready to see that coming up now. Okay, I'm going to erase and then we'll do some more sentences. Okay, first sentence. Sheena is a punk rocker and a good influence on her younger brother. The first thing that we're going to do is parenthesize prepositional phrases. There's one of them here. On her younger brother is a prepositional phrase. Sheena is the subject. Is the predicate. That's a linking verb. Now, Sheena is not just, Sheena is what is the question we should be asking ourselves. Sheena is punk rocker. That's one thing she is. Rocker is going to be a predicate nominative, because who is the punk rocker? Sheena is. So Sheena and punk rocker are the same person, or the same thing. But Sheena is also something else. Sheena is what? Sheena is punk rocker. Sheena is what? A good influence on her younger brother. Influence there is a noun, not a verb. And it's also a predicate nominative. It's the other thing in this sentence that Sheena is. By the way, Sheena is a punk rocker. That's a song by a band called the Ramones from before you were born. But it's really good. Okay, so there's no indirect object. So let's do our parts of speech now. Sheena is a noun. Is a linking verb. Is an article. Punk is an adjective describing rocker, which is a noun. And is a conjunction, joining together rocker and influence, which is a noun. Is an article. Good is an adjective. On is a preposition. Her is an adjective that is also a possessive. younger is an adjective, and brother is a noun. Okay, let's set up the main line. We have a subject, a predicate, and two predicate nominatives. So we'll have a subject, a predicate, and then we're going to need a backward slanting diagonal line because we're dealing with a linking verb and predicate nominatives. How many predicate nominatives? Two predicate nominatives. Sheena is rocker and influence. Okay, Sheena is rocker and influence. Okay, Sheena is a punk rocker. A punk rocker. And what kind of influence? A good influence. Okay, now there's one more question that I have for you, and it's going to sound sort of silly. But it's easy to make a mistake here. And the question is this. Is Sheena a punk rocker on her younger brother? And the answer to that question is no, which means that this on her younger brother prepositional phrase is just going to come off with influence. We do not need to bring these two back together. We don't need to do that because she's not a punk rocker on her younger brother. On brother, her goes on a lazy L because it's a possessive. And younger will kind of squeeze in there. Okay? On her. All right, next sentence. The students and teacher folded and threw paper airplanes all day long. Notice that you're going to treat all day long as a single word here. The first thing you should do is parenthesize prepositional phrases, which I hope won't take you very long because there aren't any, in case you didn't notice. The next thing you should do is label the subject and the predicate. Do that now. Excuse me, subjects and predicates. Okay, students and teacher folded and threw what? Paper airplanes. Okay, is this what? Airplanes. Is that a direct object, a predicate adjective, or a predicate nominative? Well, look at the verbs. Are these action or linking? Okay, so you should know the answer to your question now. Airplanes is a direct object. There is no indirect object here. I hope you can see that. So please take a moment to pause the video and identify your parts of speech. And here you go. The is an article, students is a noun, and is a conjunction, teacher is a noun, folded is a verb, and is a conjunction, through is a verb. Paper is an adjective describing what kind of airplanes they are. I know that paper can be a noun. You're probably writing on a piece of paper right now. But in this case, what paper is doing is telling us what kind of airplanes they are. And if it's telling us what kind, that means it's an adjective. And all day long is an adverb telling us when this is all happening. Please take a minute, set up your main line, then check in with me. Okay, I hope you've got something that looks like this. Two subjects, students and teacher. Two predicates, folded and through. And then one direct object, airplanes. Students and teacher folded and threw airplanes. Okay. Now the next word we have to diagram is the. Think about that for a second. How do you think it should go? Try to do it. What I hope you find yourself thinking about is whether or not students is the only word that the describes, or whether the also describes the teacher. Teacher folded and threw paper airplanes all day long. I mean, I guess you could do that, but most of you don't call your teachers teacher. You call them by name. The students folded and threw paper airplanes all day long, for sure. But so I think there's an argument to be made here that the has to describe not just students, but also teacher. So I think that this is actually more correct. If you did it just this way, hang on a second. If you did it just this way, I guess that's okay, but I really think that it's better to do it the other way. To say, the students and teacher folded and threw paper airplanes all day long. Okay, what kind of airplanes are we talking about? Paper airplanes. And when did they do this? All day long. Now, you've got a bunch of choices for how to do all day long. You could put it over here. You could put it over here. I like to try to sort of recreate the order of words in the sentence. I know I didn't leave myself much room here, but I'm going to squeeze it in right there. All day long. When? All day long. It's an adverb. This is the only thing really that can be described by an adverb there. Excuse me. Okay. Next sentence. Please identify prepositional phrases, identify the parts of the sentence. Then label the parts of speech and diagram the sentence. Pause the video. I'll race to catch up with you. Okay, now I really, really, really hope that you're following directions here and did in fact pause the video, try to do it on your own, and then wait to see what I was doing rather than just watching and following me along. These are really designed to be hey, here's one I do for you. Hey, here's one that we sort of do in bits and pieces together with you, getting feedback each step of the way. And then, hey, there's one that you try on your own and then get an explanation from me. That's how it's supposed to work. I hope that you're doing it that way. Here's the sentence. After 5 hours of Shakespeare performances, Mr. Day felt tired and inspired. Now, after 5 hours and of Shakespeare performances are both prepositional phrases. Mr. Day is the subject of the sentence. Mr. Day is the subject of the sentence. Felt is the predicate. It's a linking verb. Tired is a predicate adjective. It says what Mr. Day felt. It describes me. And inspired, also a predicate adjective describing me, Mr. Day. Felt here is a linking verb. I am not feeling tired in the same way that I'm feeling this marker in my fingers. So it's a predicate adjective. It's not a direct object. Okay, so subject, a predicate, and two predicate adjectives. Subject, Mr. Day. Felt, predicate, and then a backward slanting line, and then two predicate adjectives, tired and inspired. And then we have the two prepositional phrases after 5 hours of Shakespeare performances. Collectively, they're answering the question, when? And when here is an adverb question. These prepositional phrases come off of the predicate. Notice that they could be at the other end of the sentence too. Mr. Day felt tired and inspired after 5 hours of Shakespeare performances. And when things can be moved from the beginning to the end of the sentence like that, that means that they're acting as an adverb, and in particular, an adverb that's describing the predicate. So here is the first prepositional phrase. After hours 5. After 5 hours comes off of felt. Now, what kind of hours were they? They were hours of Shakespeare performances. And Shakespeare here, I know it's a guy's name, but it's an adjective here telling us what kind of performances they were. So of performances, with Shakespeare describing performances as an adjective. And that prepositional phrase, of Shakespeare performances, tells us what kind of hours they were. So of Shakespeare performances doesn't come off of felt, it comes off of hours. After 5 hours, what kind of hours? Hours of Shakespeare performances, and then subject, predicate, and two predicate adjectives. I hope you're starting to get the hang of this, because the next lesson has you moving on to new things, compound sentences. It's going to be rad.